Play to earn. How to make money playing Axie Infinity, the all-time highest selling NFT ever. Today, we're going to meet Bryson from the Loot Squad, who trains people how to make money playing video games. Wow. Welcome to Goats in the Metaverse, the only weekly show that goes deep into the world of NFTs and collectibles. I'm your host, Stanley Meytin. Once again, another solo appearance by myself. Yossi will be back next week. Can't wait till he comes back. But I'm very excited to sit down and talk to Bryson, who has a lot going on and has a really good craft in the Axie Infinity world. Before we get into that, let's check out everybody's favorite part of the show, the GOAT Vault. What we got going on in the GOAT Vault, and we are back up $54,958. What does that mean? What does the GOAT Vault mean? If you subscribe to our show, once we hit 5,000 subscribers, we open up the GOAT Vault and start giving away all these great NFTs. We got a cool cat in there. We got a World of Women in there. We got some other very exciting things. Once again, I believe we invested around $3,000 into the GOAT Vault. Right now, we're up about $54,000. Who knows what the GOAT Vault will be once we hit 5,000 subscribers? What we do know is it's going to be yours once we get there. And let's check out what we have going on in the wonderful world of NFTs for the last week. Here's our weekly top 10. The top 3 NFTs are, once again, Axie Infinity. We got a new one on the leaderboard, Doodles, which I'm excited to talk about, and CryptoPunks is still top 3. So those are your top 3 NFTs, Axie, Doodles, and CryptoPunks. Axie, as we talk about weekly, they're the top dog. The number 1 selling NFT of all time. They did over $2.5 billion in sales year to date. And I'm excited to talk to Bryson soon. He could walk us through that world. Doodles is a brand new NFT that launched about a week ago, and there's been catching a lot of buzz. As you can see, the artwork is very, very cool. They have a great team behind them. It's been fluctuating around the 1 ETH mark, and it's one of the only NFTs that's actually going up in the down market. I personally like the project. I like the team behind it. I know one of the founders of the team just spent 100 ETH on the logo of Doodles, saying to us that they believe in their own brand and are putting their money where their mouth is and continuing to invest into it. There's also a lot of big players that are behind the project in the NFT space, talking about the project, buying up Doodles. So excited to see where that goes. What else we got going on? The past 2-3 weeks have been a little crazy in the space. We're still in the bear market. Everything is down. Everything's on sale. If you believe in the NFT space, or as we like to call it in the card space, buy the dip. Cool Cats went down from about 14 ETH to 6 ETH. Toads went from 12 all the way down to 4. Apes are down to 29 ETH floor. Things are continuing to go down, even though I've noticed today that there is a slight uptick. Things are starting to slowly go back up. So here's a major question. Why are things going down? Why are people panicking? Why are they selling? So the school of thought is ETH is almost at an all-time high. It hit about $4,300 this week. All-time high is about $4,400. So it's very close to an all-time high. And Bitcoin, we know, is at 66,000 this week. So the school of thought is people are pulling out their money and they're putting it into coins. Once Bitcoin continues to rise, ETH follows suit, and so do some other coins. So people are taking their money out of NFTs and putting it into coins. Do I agree with that thesis? I don't disagree with it. But I also think, yeah, maybe some people are taking some money off the table. Maybe some people are genuinely scared, or maybe, yeah, they're chasing the alpha, just like we see on a day-to-day basis in the NFT world, where people are hopping onto the hottest project. Maybe they're hopping onto the hottest coin out there. I would not panic personally. I still believe in ETH. I still believe in NFT world, and I believe those numbers are going to come up. Now the question becomes, is this a good time to buy? My answer is, if you believe in Ethereum, if you believe in NFTs long term, by long term, I mean not a month, not 3 months, not 6 months. I'm talking about 3, 5, 10 years down the line. Then the answer is yes. It is a good time to buy into projects you believe in. Projects you believe the story, projects you trust the creators, the developers, people that are behind the project, projects with strong communities. Those are projects that I would totally look into buying the dip. But once again, I look at it as a long-term investment. I look at it as, if it goes down to $1 tomorrow, am I still happy that I bought this? And do I still believe in this long-term? And that's kind of my personal investment strategy. And that's something that I would advise or have you consider when you're looking to buy into NFTs. Some other interesting things that happened in the world of NFTs this week. We had a large hack of creature toads, not crypto toads, creature toads. $368,000 was stolen. 80 ETH was stolen by a 17-year-old who was tracked down and has returned the money. But after he was tracked down and after he returned the money, he hopped onto a Twitter space and started telling everybody how he did it and why he did it. And supposedly things got a little bit ugly. There was 2,500 people listening to it live. Words of wisdom: do not click on any links. Do not follow anything on Discord. Be very, very, very careful with your purchases, with your mints. Make sure you're doing your due diligence and do not just click or buy anything. It is a very hackable world out there. So please be careful when you're chasing things in the Discord community. And I'm sure this is going to continue, and I'm sure we're going to learn lessons along the way. But look, I think the good part is that we're having these conversations in the community. We're talking about, hey, here's how people could get hacked. Here's how to avoid it. And 2,500 people in a Twitter live space are listening in on this because they care. They want to make sure this doesn't happen again. And I guess now we know how the 17-year-old thief has done it. I'm not sure what the consequences are going to be, if he's going to get turned over to the authorities because he gave back the money. But we shall see what happens, and we'll continue to follow the story here. So that's what's been happening in the world of NFTs. What I'm excited to talk about is get my man Bryson up in here and talk about Axie, because I'm personally super intrigued about Axie. So without further ado, Bryson, welcome to Go to the Metaverse, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me, Stanley. How you doing?
I am living the dream on a Friday. How about you?
Feeling pretty good. It's Friday, getting a bunch of stuff done, playing a bunch of Axie, and excited to be here talking about Axie. I feel like it's where I spend most of my time up until this point. So yeah, excited to be here.
So Axie, I have so much questions to ask, so much to learn. Let's go to like level 101 for somebody that's listening to the show or watching the show who has no idea what Axie is.
Yeah.
What's Axie?
So my best way of describing Axie is it is a play to earn game that operates very similar to like Pokemon. So if you've played Pokemon, you capture, you get these little creatures. Well, in the Pokemon world, they don't serve the purpose of being NFTs, but when you play Axie Infinity, every character you buy, you own these little Axies. their axolotl creatures, they are actual NFTs that are worth real world value. So you can sell them for cryptocurrency that you could exchange back into American dollars or whatever currency or fiat that you choose. But the cool thing is this play to earn concept that is in Axie Infinity, where if you play, and myself, Stanley, you and I could battle one-on-one with our Axies, and if you were to beat me, Stanley, you would actually earn SLP. And this SLP is another cryptocurrency that has a real world valuation. And it's like people are playing and earning enough money in certain countries to be able to make a living. So that is the power behind Axie Infinity. Very much a Pokemon inspired game, but a lot of fun. And these lovable little creatures allow people to make actual real world money.
Wow. So you could be making money playing video games. Everything my mama told me you cannot make money playing video games was actually not true.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that are playing these games are in countries where, they're making $500 to $1,000 a month, which is significantly higher than their national average salary. Am I correct?
That is very true. Average minimum wage in some of those places, the Philippines, Malaysia, there's people making 5 or 6 times the average income there. And it's like, just playing a game for a couple hours a day, you wouldn't even think this would be possible. But yeah, there's a lot of people who do very well playing Axie Infinity. And it's been just sweeping through a lot of these developing nations, and even in places like Central America, South America, and Asia and India as well.
So how did you get into it?
Oh man, the story.
How did you find out about
it? So the crazy thing, the story of how it all started, it was April. I was previously working on a startup. I was a software engineer before jumping into the metaverse. And before that process started, I was like in a space where I was like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like I knew what my career path was and I wasn't too happy with it. But I was driving home one morning. I went out and got something to eat. And one thing that I was always into was podcasts. So there's this podcast called the Market Meditations Podcast. A guy named Andrew Steinwald was on it at the time. And he was talking about NFTs. And at the time, he was the first to create an NFT hedge fund. So I'm listening, driving. And he starts talking about this game called Axie Infinity, Land, and all these little creatures that people use to play. And I've always been a gamer. So I was like, seems a little bit too good to be true, but I'll try it out. So I get home, I get on the computer, I look it up, I see this stuff, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And that night I go onto Twitch because I'm like, yo, how do I, find a way to learn more about this game? Like, okay, there's a Discord, but is anyone streaming it? And to my knowledge, back in early April, there was like maybe 40 people on the Twitch category in total that followed the game, which is like none. And there were no streamers streaming that night that I went to look for the game. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try my best to become like a big Axie personality streamer, help the community grow, help build the game. And I got into the game and I got like completely hooked. It made sense to me. Like the monetary aspect made sense. And, since then was able to like really stake my claim on Twitch and YouTube and Twitter over this last 8 month period. But my story was literally just Axie kind of found me at the right time. And I think that I got, put in a position where this game needed content creators and needed personalities, and it needed people to help build the narrative and community build. And that's my main thing. So like I jumped in head first, started streaming. After that, a couple of my friends that are whales in the space, I met them through Axie and through streaming. They like hit me up and said, yo, why don't we start this cool thing called the Loot Squad? We already have Axies. We have an idea, and we need someone to be the face and help grow and build and cultivate this community. And that's where kind of everything just blew out of proportion. And now I don't know how we got where we are, but it's been a heck of a journey this far.
Wow. Well, congrats to you. I have like a billion questions, but let's start with the last one. What is the Loot Squad?
Yep. So the Loot Squad is a play to earn guild in the Axie Infinity and NFT gaming space. But we focus on more than just kind of playing to earn. Our main focus is on community building. So we want to build up our gamers into streamers like myself, into community builders, into influencers, into content creators. We want to allow people to reach and achieve their, wildest imaginations beyond just the idea of I'm playing a game and earning an income. So helping people live to thrive instead of living to survive. And ideally, I think that the play to earn ecosystem is great, but we've come to understand that you need to be more than just a guild. We want to be a company that creates consumer products on top of this guild infrastructure. So what we've been doing is actually in our kind of behind the scenes time, we're building the Coinbase of play to earn. So ideally, Stanley, you'd be able to literally get on your iPhone and be like, all right, I'm going to make an account on the Loot app, and I'm going to swipe my card and buy 10 scholarship teams that are fully managed under the Loot Squad, and I will earn passive income in the form of that SLP or currency of the game just from being a part of this ecosystem and buying some teams that are managed by us. So we're really looking to expand play to earn in the United States in terms of bringing in investors into the space that bring in more infrastructure into NFT gaming as a whole. And that's where a lot of our time and energy goes on the back end.
Genius. So you're basically saying, hey, look, we know this game. We know how it works. We have the audience of the people that want to jump on in and play the game. We train them how to play the game. Now, you're a gentleman or a lady or somebody who has a few extra dollars that says, hey, I want to invest into this, and now I'm making a passive income off of somebody else's skill set. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, because you're technically like you're giving. It's almost like a philanthropic standpoint as well, because you buy those 10 teams there, that goes to 10 people in a developing nation that can now earn a well and livable wage in a space where previously they wouldn't be able to. So not only are you providing a philanthropic standpoint, but you're also being able to earn yield for yourself. And what we've come to understand is right now, just in our own personal portfolio on this, we're returning anywhere between like 30 and like it's projected to be like 30-40% year over year APR for people who would be putting in their investment or their income. So for us, it's like we also know that we can outperform traditional index funds by an alarming rate. And there are tons of people who are already in the space of crypto, in the space of NFTs that are like, hey, I would love a passive income. There's no such thing as a passive income stream in crypto. It's all value investing at this point. But what NFT gaming is going to allow the future of the world to do is passively invest in people. And those people can then have the opportunity to change their lives for themselves and their communities. And that goes way beyond any floor price NFT that you could buy and hold and hope that it accrues value, because you're generating value every single month, regardless of what's happening. So our thought process is, how do we cultivate and become the NFT gaming aggregator of the play to earn space? I
love it. I love everything about it. And look, I think you're talking about 30 to 40% returns. I have some finance friends who say, hey, the S&P, we outperformed S&P, or as long as you're on, and we're talking about, 10%, 12%, 30, 40% returns. You're talking about, I've seen some decks. I've seen some investment opportunities. I've seen a few things. Those are real numbers. Those are monster numbers. I mean, they might not be monster numbers in the day-to-day NFT world of us seeing 200% returns and then in a matter of hours, but 30-40% is legit numbers.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, with crypto things fluctuate, but the ideology behind it is, over time, if you put the average together, how much can you return and how much can you beat traditional funds that people are putting their money into as store of values right now? I mean, with an index fund and you put on top of that inflation, dude, you're not really getting any more than like 2 or 3% year over year at that point. So it's like you're not doing an insane amount in an index fund and something of that sort. But our ideology is, if we can return 20% on investment year over year, there's no space in which an investor is going to look at that and say, there's a better sound investment out there for my passive income than this, So ideally, that's kind of what we think about on the financial front. But to do this on the back end, it involves cultivating community. It involves putting people in positions where they can feel like they are not only empowered, but there's this level of stickiness with your brand, with your organization. And you really want to focus on creating a family. And that's what we've done on the Loot Squad so far.
I love it. So let's talk about community, because I think that's the number one buzzword in NFTs.
Yeah.
Right? And look, I'll be honest with you. We had a few guests on to talk about Axies. We cover the show on a weekly basis. We talk about Axies number one. I have never played Axie. I don't know how to play Axie. I get the point of it. We have our community managers into it. I get it, right? But in this whole other world of NFTs that I'm in on a day-to-day basis, where you're like, hey, you happen to own I don't know, you bought a Bored Ape at 1 ETH and now it's worth 30,
Yeah.
right? Like those are some crazy, crazy numbers. Or something mints for 0.02 and the next day it sells for 3 ETH, right? But like Axie continues to be number one, right? And Axie is number one. And let's talk. And it seems like the community in Axie, which, like I said, in the other NFT world, like they don't even know what Axie really is. Like,
Yeah.
what is that? Like, what? Let's talk about the Axie community, and let's talk about like just community overall in the NFT space.
Yeah. So I think like, and there's going to be people that kind of go both ways on this, but I'm very much a firm believer that the Axie community, and there's a couple of other projects that do very well in terms of building and cultivating a solid community, but it starts at the very root level. Can you get people that want to be involved with the project, regardless of where the project stands, regardless of if floor prices are high, if they're low? How are you able to cultivate a group of people who have the same mindset or something very similar with different diverse backgrounds that are willing to stake, not their life, but stake a claim on their own personal kind of understanding and like well-being, that, hey, this is a project that I can get behind, that I trust, but also that I'm going to be an active part of building. I think a problem you see with a lot of projects, and which is why you see stuff mint and then immediately the price jumps up to 3 or 4 ETH and then boom, it plummets back down, is you see that most of it isn't true community. They'll like, most of it is, hey, we're tweeting about our floor price today because it went up like 20% or 30% in like half an hour. And I'm like, yeah, that's good for traders. And dude, it's always good to make a quick flip if you can do that. But it's like, what about building? What about that actual project? What about the people who come in after that are like, oh, I'm buying in this project because someone said the floor is high and it's a good project. But then I get into it and I'm like, oh, it's not that great and I've lost money. And then you potentially lose a user because there is no real identity in terms of a true community understanding behind of it. And that's what I've been trying to kind of stress to people. It's like, dude, I love all these projects, but it's like, you got to be careful, because just because something is selling at a high price doesn't mean there's a strong community behind it. And a strong community is what's going to be the difference between something holding a store of value when it drops 20% or 30% on a bear market and still being able to climb back up like Axie did from 2018 to 2019, 2020, 2021, because they've been around for so long, versus a fly-by-night project. And not saying all of them are, because I love the NFT space. I love Bored Apes. I love Crypto Punks. I love the Cyber Kongs and some others. But at the end of the day, it's like, there are some projects that just pop up and they'll do these really extravagant mints. Then the next week, you see people selling at like half the price that they actually bought it at. And it's like, dang, you really feel bad because, that's what it is because we're so early. But I think like if you focus on community when you're investing in projects and really take a deep understanding of who are the big players in the space, who's putting money in it, who's just shilling it, who do you see on Twitter talking about it from a community standpoint, from a togetherness standpoint? What are the initiatives? Are they doing anything in the spaces of like, giving back and like charity and stuff? Because all of these things cultivate a surrounding community that's going to make a project last. As soon as I see people start tweeting about the floor prices, I step back and I'm like, yeah, there might be a good chance for me to flip, but I would rather miss out on a flip than be involved in something that is going to like really plummet. Because from my standpoint, dude, it's almost like detrimental to my brand to be a part of something like that.
No, I get it. And look, I think you have the right attitude about it. So let's talk about, how long does it take for somebody to learn how to play Axie? How hard is it to play Axie? Let's say, somebody's watching a show and they're like, look, one, maybe I don't make enough money on my real job, or two, maybe I could dedicate 2-3 hours after work and play Axie. Like, what do you have to do, right? Obviously, besides follow you on Twitch and YouTube, but like and ask your questions. But like, how long does it take for somebody to actually learn how to play?
I would say you could pick it up pretty good in a couple of hours. Like the biggest thing you want to kind of get down at the very base level is there are so many cards in the game and so many parts that you're not going to learn it all in a couple of minutes. But if you can just get a very decent team to start with, get into like the arena mode, get into the private adventure mode, and start just kind of playing the game in terms of like, okay, let me just throw a couple cards out there and see what this attack does. Like a lot of it is true, like intrigue and intuition at the beginning. And I sucked at the beginning. I sucked for like the first 4 or 5 days. But if you can get through the period of not being that good to really understand what's going on in the game, it'll change your perspective in terms of, oh, I see how this works. I see how a Pikachu used to use Thunderbolt, and now my plant Axie can use like, Spicy Surprise, which is like a pepper tail, of course. But there is a couple of nuances into the game. But if you want to get very high level, it takes probably, I would say, like a month.
A month. So in a month, you're kind of like, if let's say you're into it, you're putting in the hours, and
Yeah.
how many hours a day do you play, Bryson?
Honestly, like two. I only play when I stream. So a lot of the times, and there's this thing called scholarshiping that we were talking about earlier with the loot squad, but you can get in most of your games in like a 2 hour period because games only last 3 to 4 minutes. So I only play a couple hours a day. I'm not like one of those, traditional gaming pros that, does like a 12, 14 hour stream of playing. I think that's like, that'd be a lot and be super strenuous on me. But I think a couple hours a day and then maybe watch 20, 30 minutes of content on the game is all you need to really get a good sense of the game.
All right. Yeah, we got something from our audience. What's
Oh
a
yeah, we got some stuff going on.
2 to 4 hours per day? I guess that sounds about
Yeah.
pretty accurate. So, and what's let's say somebody wants to get into the game, and what do they need? Do they need money? Do they need
Yeah. So
what do they need?
yeah, so there are a couple of ways you can get in. The first way is, let's say you do have money. Let's say you have, anywhere from $700 to $1,000. You're like, all right, I'm just going to ape in. I'm going to get me 3 of these and I'm going to get rolling. Well, first, you download the wallet. You got to get the Ronin wallet to get started. And then you want to go in and buy Axies. And this is the hard part because when I first started, I didn't really know much about the game. So I bought 3 really horrible Axies that I had to resell back at like a lesser price and have to go through the cost of gas because everything was on Ethereum at that time. So it probably cost me $1,500 to find a good team because I didn't know what I was doing. But there's enough resources out now where $700 can get you a very solid Axie team that you can climb very high. And to be honest, you can make your money back in the first month if you get to a decent point in your actual skill level. So that's very good to know. Now, the other side of the game is what we call scholarshiping. That is when you actually you lend your Axies or assets out. Like, for example, my guild has over 1,000 Axies. So we would lend our Axies out to someone who is, either less fortunate or just doesn't have the money to afford a team. And what they could do at that point is play with our team. We would take a small percentage of what they earn. We normally take around 25 to 30%. They would keep the other 70%, and they would just use our team until they make enough money in the game to buy their own Axie team. And we've done this tons of time. We have over like 4 or 5, actually I think we're 550 scholars now. So we have been doing this NFT asset lending for people for a very long time. A lot of them use it to buy their own team. Some of them are fine just playing with our Axies and using it to make a living in terms of paying for food, housing, real life things that need to be paid for. But they're making so much more. It's very kind of helpful to the cost of living based on where they're currently like stationed or located. So there's a couple of ways. Those are the 2 main ways of getting into the game if you want to play. Now, if you want to breed, that's a completely different story. We could do a whole nother segment just based on the nuances of breeding.
So if let's say I owned Axie and I could lend it to you, how does that process work? Is there, you're kind of assigning like a user of it?
Yeah.
And then like, how do you actually kind of go through that process?
Yeah, so the way that we go about doing it is you can pretty much create separate wallets for each account that you would lend to. You would hold the private key. So the person you're lending to doesn't have any access to the wallet. They only have access to the structured login into the application of the game. So your Axies are tied to your wallet, which is tethered to that user login. And when they log in, they can just play with it, but they can't go in and sell any Axies or trade any Axies or breed anything. You have full control over those assets. All they can do is log into the system.
Right. And then once that money comes in, I guess you pay them out just like you would pay out a salary.
Exactly. Yep.
And is there a negative connotation? Let's say, I have an Axie and I lend it to somebody and they suck at the game. Is there any downside to somebody overusing an Axie or using an Axie or not using it correctly?
So there's no mileage system on Axie, so you don't have to worry about like a car where if we were to lend a car out to someone so they could drive on Uber for us and then pay us like a stipend every month, we'd have to deal with the mileage and depreciation there. But an Axie doesn't really depreciate unless you breed it. When you breed it, the breed count goes up. The max you can breed an Axie is 7 times. So at that point, depreciation value does happen, but not when you're playing the game. Like there is no mileage system for that. However, you do want your scholars to be pretty decent. Like they don't need to be the top ranking players. Of course, that's great. But as long as they can get the minimum amount daily, you still can receive a solid return on investment. So our thought process is if people are working hard, they're doing their very best, we give them the best, opportunity to be successful, whether it's Axies, training, anything in between. But there are some times you just run into people who don't take the opportunity seriously. And we have managers that, handle that. They have the discretion to remove them and add new scholars if people aren't taking it seriously or being disrespectful. So there are both sides to the coins, because people can multi-account, and that can potentially get your Axies banned as well. So you do have to do a very strong job at vetting these Axie scholars beforehand, so you don't look up and, you look up and you're out of $800-900 in assets because they got banned.
All right. I got a question from the audience that I would like to know the answer of.
Yeah.
So can you explain to us what happened with SLP price? It's already 3 months decreasing. There's any update regarding burn supply SLP?
Yeah. So a couple of things to kind of dig into as I talk through this one. When we think of the SLP price, back during last year, I think SLP was maybe a cent at this time last year, or maybe it was less than a cent. So year over year, right now, SLP is up. I think it's more than like 500% or something stupid like that. Now, where the interesting thing is, most of us that got into the game after like May or June. I got in April, so I was still like, I got in, it was around 40,000 daily active users. There's 2 million, I think, or close to 2 million daily active. So a couple of things to take into account regarding SLP price. With so many people playing and so much SLP minted, it's like any real economy system. If you print too much money without, having the proper ways to reduce the amount of money that's being printed, or you're going to run into levels of inflation, or you're going to run into levels where prices are going to decrease. And in Axie Infinity, with more players getting into the game and potentially less people breeding right now, because the only real burning mechanism in Axie for SLP is when you breed. So if less people are breeding right now, and in any system, it's going to work like this. If there's no way to handle the burn process, price is just going to go down a little bit. So I think at one point, SLP was sitting at like 22, 23 cents earlier, maybe like 2 months ago. And now it's down to I think it's like 6 or 7 cents. I don't know at the time of us doing this, but is there any update regarding the burn? So one thing that Axie Infinity recently did, they made it to where people under a certain MMR level do not earn SLP. And they did this because there were bots that were pretty much minting SLP and just playing. So now they've reduced, they said over 650 million SLP per month that would be minted. So that's one thing that they're doing. But in the future, we're going to see SLP have more use cases. We're going to probably see more burn mechanisms from the Axie team. I'm pretty confident of that. With the game still being in alpha, there's always going to be a period where there's a dry spell. But to kind of answer your question, SLP will be fine in the long run. In the short term intermediary, yes, the team has to figure out more remedies to fix the whole burning mechanism, but the team isn't going to just come up with 100 different ways to fix this. I don't think SLP was ever meant to be a $1 like currency. It's an in-game currency. If you want a store of value, I think you should stick with AXS for the long term. But at the end of the day, I think people should really just kind of relax on the pricing of SLP. And if you're in the game more so for the trading aspect, you don't want to be trading SLP as your primary trading resource, in my opinion. You do much better trading other coins or other NFTs, in my opinion.
All right. Wow, you're a wealth of knowledge, man. So you're 8-9 months into the space, and now you're an influencer, right? You're verified on Twitter.
Yeah.
You got, a few 100,000 followers, subscribers. How has your life changed in the last 8-9 months? And how does that feel, right? Like what does that even mean?
So honestly, it feels crazy. I haven't been able to really bask in success or anything, because I feel like, we're doing a couple of things. Loot Squad's raising a very big funding round backed by some really cool investors to expand this whole building the Coinbase of play to earn. So that's like something that's really been on my mind. But it's been crazy because every moment has just been building. And I think the testament of how I've grown so far has been just a true testament to how strong the community we built is. Like, most of my following is not from America. I think maybe like 10% or something like that. But I was able to find a home very early on in places like the Philippines who welcome me with open arms and, have been very kind and very awesome to me. And I love giving back and doing everything I can to show them and repay that faith. But it has been magical. I remember looking up before I got into the space, and I would see my influence, like people of influence that I really, really looked up to, like Alexis Ohanian and Gary Vee and, people like Nate Shot in the gaming space. And, being able to have these guys follow me and have conversations and really be in a space where your idols become your peers, and you're looking at them and feeling adjacent. It's kind of crazy. I don't know how to process it, but I mean, the first big thing I'm doing, I'm going to be moving to Miami in a couple of weeks, getting a super, super nice condo. And that'll kind of be like my first, I guess, moment of saying, okay, like this is the culmination of the hard work, but I just love building.
I love it. So you're moving down to Miami. You have a brand new condo. You're going to invite everybody from the Philippines and throw a big party. Is that?
If I could get everybody here, I will. My plan is early next year. I wanted to get out to the Philippines in December, but I don't think it's going to happen. But early next year, I am thinking maybe in March or April, I will do an entire month in the Philippines, just hanging out, traveling to different islands, cities, provinces, and just really meeting the people who changed my life and allowed me to change theirs. So that is like my plan, just spend time out there and get to know my family a bit more on that side of the world. But yeah, dude, it's been a heck of a journey this far. I don't even know what to say because I don't know where this is going. Like my thought process was once I got to the point of doing it full time, like that was good enough for me. And now it's like, okay, how can I help other people get to that point?
I love it. I mean, look, I love the story. And I love the story that where it's like, we're all like, you've been in the space since April. I've been buying NFTs since February, but like really kind of went deep into it probably in May. And it's like, I don't want to call myself an OG, but like people in the space and earlier in the year, they're more OGs than like people who got in like July and August when everybody else got in. So I think it's interesting, but to me, the interesting part is meeting people on a day-to-day basis and educating them about what NFTs are, what Ethereum is, like what the future holds, what things like Axie are, because we're so early and we're so new, and at the same time, like the technology is insane, right? Like the fact that the technology could help people make a living in a third world country where they would not be able to do so, but now they're doing it playing video games, right? Not physical labor, not working in a factory where they could be inhaling something into their lungs or whatever the story may be, right? They're doing it out of the comfort of their home, or they're doing it out of an internet cafe or whatever it is. And I think that's like, if you really look at it from a different perspective, that's pretty magical, right? That's pretty kind of insane that this world can provide that for people. And the first time I heard what Axie's doing for people overseas, I was completely blown away by it. And I think that's a big reason why it's number one selling NFT, right? It's $2.5 billion in sales.
That's crazy.
Which is like, you're talking about Fortune 500 company type. Like, we're talking about real deal type of stuff. I know we have some questions from our Twitter audience.
Ooh.
We asked, who got some questions? We got some questions.
Oh my goodness.
First question, how to apply in your scholarship program?
Oh my goodness. I get this question so much. My managers handle it mostly, but there is no true application process. And this is another thing that we started. I do this thing on my Twitch stream called Watch to Earn, because I think getting a Google form of someone's application isn't a true understanding of who they are, and it doesn't give me a good sense of their character. So in my stream, on my Twitch stream, the only way you can really get a scholarship is either by being super active on Twitter and like just me seeing you building community, and then I just offer them. But the other way is through Twitch and watching my streams, being involved in the audience, being super active, so I can get a sense of who you are. I use that as a resume process because it scales much easier. I can stream for 2 hours a day, get a very good sense of who's truly here to like join the Loot Squad and be a part of the community, and then give them scholarships over randomly picking people that may not know anything about me, anything about the Loot Squad. I want a family at the end of the day, and I'm very selective. So that's why we have a system in place that involves you being an active community builder, because we don't want to just have fly-by-night players just like anything else. We want to build an entire family. So that is the easiest way to apply. I know this question comes up so much, but there are tons of resources out there. So if you're still asking this question, I need you to ask yourself, are you doing enough to gain the attention of a Loot Squad manager or myself? There's tons of resources out there on that.
I see a segment on your YouTube channel that's like a step-by-step of what do I need to do to build a community, right? Where do I start? What's the first step? How do I create a Twitch account? I mean, look, and I love that answer. I love the answer. Is like, I don't need your resume. I don't need your, maybe you're good at answering questions, or maybe you're a better writer than somebody else in that country. Put in that time, put in that effort. You're almost kind of, giving the Gary Vee playbook of like, hiring D-Rock or something, right? Where it's like, do it for free, show us you're good at it, and we'll want you almost, more than you want us, right? Because it's kind of like recruiting high school sports or something like that, right? Like you want to be able to see that these people have the skill set that you're looking for. And I love that you want them to be content creators, right? Because that's, you're building communities within communities. You're building this ecosystem. All right. And what's your outlook in general? I mean, about NFTs, like,
I'm extremely bullish.
Outside of, Axie, and then kind of like, I know you mentioned you like Bored Apes and punks and Kongs, but like, talk to me about it in general. What do you like? What don't you like? What do you see the future being?
Yeah. So, dude, I'm extremely bullish on the NFT scene as a whole. I really, really love art NFTs. So I've been doing a lot of research in my spare time and kind of like stuff that doesn't involve, just getting mainstream kind of opinion on it, but digging deep and finding artists that create really cool stuff. And then like curating a list of things that I want to buy, because I don't have endless ETH. I'm not a whale yet. I do pretty well, but I'm not a whale. So I have to take my time and buy just like anyone else. But I love art. I'm also a very big fan, like I said, CryptoPunks. I think it's like Bitcoin, the Bitcoin of NFTs. They're not going anywhere. You have one, it's like owning the Mona Lisa or the Picasso. So, they're pretty much ingrained. I think Bored Apes, the Bored Apes are doing very well. The Cyberkongs. I like Cool Cats. They've come up, but my real interest, dude, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but I think they're super undervalued. Have you done much with the SupDucks community?
So I believe it or not, I don't personally own any SupDucks.
Yeah.
But I've actually had a phone conversation with one of the founders, and seemed like one of the artists, and seemed like a really nice guy, and seemed like they did it the right way. Their team is legit. I think the art is super cool.
Yeah.
I dig it. I dig it.
Yeah, and I think that is a sleeper, because you earn this crypto called Volt just from holding a SupDuck. So I have one. I'll probably go in eventually and buy a couple of more, just so I can really hedge my bets on like the whole passive income idea into NFTs. But I think NFTs as a whole, the ones that can bridge art, community, and utility are going to be the blue chips of the future. For example, I by my own standard, I don't consider a CryptoPunk a blue chip from that criteria. I consider it a blue chip from the criteria of it was first. It has like this very strong popularity. It has community because people just love it, because it's like so foundational to what NFTs are. But I think the future blue chips are going to be those ones that the art needs to be insane. It needs to be great. It needs to be cool. It needs to be something that people can gravitate towards to. People want to, connect their identities to art. I mean, what are some NFTs you're currently looking at that you are like, damn, like that is just sick?
I actually really like Doodles. I just bought one this week.
Doodles, I have never heard of that.
I think the art is cool. I think the team behind it is legit. Look here, and you mentioned like a lot of things that I agree with. Art, community, utility. I mean, like you hit it out of the park there. But here's the thing. Look, CryptoPunks, right? People own CryptoPunks. They're the OG. I've never met anybody actually say that's not true, right? They're the original NFT. Everyone is going to say that. Everyone believes in it. Everyone who's in the NFT space says they're number one, and there's no like denying it, right? But I think it's, do you relate as a CryptoPunk, right? Like I have a CryptoPunk, but my Twitter handle is an ape, right? Because I associate more myself with that culture. So I think it's kind of, I think, and we've seen it this week, right? Reese Witherspoon bought a World of Women, and changed her avatar to World of Women, and like, oh, there we go. Look at that, producing by Gabby.
So beautiful.
Beautiful. And look, I like the artwork. It's an all-woman team. I'm assuming she's saying, hey, this is who I am. This is the artwork I relate to. She's supporting we're all-woman team. And we're seeing this now on the daily, right?
Yeah.
Celebrities are hopping on, and they're not only are they changing their avatar profiles to these profile pictures, but they're also jumping into the discords, right? We've seen it with Steph and Board 8. Like they're getting behind this and saying, this is who I am. And if they didn't, those people, like the community, would actually say this is bullshit, right? Like they're just getting paid to change their avatar to this. But no, they're actually, it's a cultural phenomenon. This is who we relate to. This is who we look like. This is what we feel like, right? This is who we are, right? And this is in the NFT world. This is our project, and I think that, you know, obviously the more and more people that are going to kind of change their, you know, avatar pictures, the more and more that's going to help those projects grow. But yeah, listen, you build a great community, you're going to win. Your art is beautiful, you're going to win.
Yeah.
You figure out how to break in utility into the mix. And utility is not, and you know, I think a lot of people, utility is not offering, you know, a round 2 for free, right?
Yeah. That's not utility.
And it has worked, and it's going to continue to work. It's going to drive the market. But to me, like, there's all these projects that are copycats and people are buying them. And I'm like, I don't get it. Like, that's like buying a fake Rolex, right? Like what's the point of buying a copycat project? What's the point of buying, you know, a fake Louis Vuitton bag? Like, just go buy a Timex for $29. If, you know, like, why are you going to be somebody you're not, right? It's not authentic. But we'll see it. We'll see it. We got one more Twitter question.
Okay. What you got for me?
Is it okay to start your scholarship or your own team with just floor Axie, since that's what I can save up for right now?
Yeah.
Which one for on the stats or cards? I'd answer your question. I don't know the answer to that. Right.
Oh my goodness. That's a very in-depth one. But yes, I think it is okay to start with floor Axies. I made a YouTube video where I legit went on the market and bought 3 floor Axies and won games at pretty high MMRs. So there are some floor Axie gems if you do work very hard to like dig deep. Now, some cards that I always look for when I'm building teams, and you can go about using this when you're building a floor Axie team to be successful, cards that do energy steal. So like Sirius, Rice, if anytime you grab something like that where you're stealing energy from your opponent in the game, you're going to be pretty good. And then high damage cards, you're going to want to apply pressure. So maybe you get some beast action rolling or you know, something like that. But you need to, you know, kind of focus on building a team at least strong enough to apply enough damage to win games if you're going to give a floor Axie team to scholars. So that's how I would answer that. So I'd focus on Sirius, maybe Rice, let's say Dual Blade, and things of that sort. So get some beast cards like Nutcracker in there. And that's probably the best way I could answer that with the floor Axie scholar team.
I love it. I love the in-depth answer. And one other question I got for you, like, what other games do you think are on the come up, right? What other play to earn games you think are next? I'm a big believer in Zed as an investor. I think the utility on Zed is mind-blowing. Obviously, it's a little bit different than Axie, but what do you like?
Man, I get this question so much, and I'm so hesitant to give out too much information because, in Loot Squad, we're working on partnerships with games that we believe in so that we can help them grow and also continue to cultivate and grab NFTs in the games ourselves. But a couple of games that I would say to look out for. One that I'm really bullish on. I like Zed. I've talked to a couple of people there, but have not played the game yet. But Illuvium is probably one that I'm extremely bullish on right now. Also, dabbling in the space of Voxie's NFT. I bought a couple of Voxies. Their demo comes out at 3 p.m. today. So if you want to check out that demo, I would highly recommend it. 9 Heroes. It's a Solana-based game, but it's going to be really, really sick. Very similar to like Apex Battle Royale style. And then the last one that I'm really into is Cypher. So those are 4 games that I am actively looking and looming across and trying to decide how we're going to go about our strategy for them. And for myself, I don't shill games. I don't do any things that involve, checking out every single game because it's so early and a lot of these games will fail. But if I had to bet my money on 4 of those games, of course, you have your blue chips like Star Atlas, Guild of Guardians. Those are great ways to get into as well. They're billion-dollar companies. They're not going anywhere. But I'm a very big fan of the 4 that I named at the beginning.
I love it. And last question, I promise, before parting words. What advice you got for somebody that's like, you know what? I want to learn more about the space. Where do I start? Where do I go?
I guess is that like just Axie based in general, or just like let's say you want to be a
Yeah, I
creator?
mean, let's Axie based in general. Let's do that. You're the Axie expert.
Okay, so like I would say if you just want to come in and learn more about the space, the first thing I did when I got into is decide what I wanted to do. From the very onset, I knew I wanted to be a big content creator for the game. I wanted to be someone who was serving like the community as a humanitarian and helping others. So having a strong identity behind what you want to do. And if you want to build in certain ways, definitely focusing on your identity, your brand, and in Axie, figuring out what fits you best. Breeding is very profitable. Playing the game as a top level competitor is profitable. Running a scholarship guild is very profitable and really, really inspiring and just heartwarming. So there's tons of ways you can get in, but figuring out what works best for you. My process and kind of how I started, first thing I did in the game, got a couple Axies, started streaming, started breeding Axies, created a ton of content, and then eventually created my own scholar program. And I think that anyone who's getting into Axie right now and not thinking, how can I get 3 Axies and build a scholarship for someone else so I can earn passive income and help change the world? I think like you're missing out if you don't do that. So that's where I would start. Get into the game, play it for a month and a half to get very, very in depth in understanding how everything works, and then focus on building a scholarship or two, or focus on breeding and learning the different aspects of the game. But you can't. It's so much in this space. You got to take your time. At the end of the day.
Patience is virtue. All right, and where can one find you all over the internet?
Yep. So hello to the guy from Croatia. Nice to meet you. But you can find me Bryson_ at Twitter, and then Bryson on YouTube and Twitch. But also make sure you check out the man with the plan, the guy who's running the amazing show Goats and the Metaverse, Stanley Meytin. Make sure you follow him, like and subscribe on this YouTube channel. I'm super blessed to be here as one of the, I guess, earlier goats to hop into this channel where it's under 1,000 subscribers right now. So I'm thankful to be on one of these early episodes. We'll look back on this in 3 to 5 years when it's a 1 million subscriber channel. And, I'll just be so thankful to be one of the first. So Stanley, dude, thank you so much for having me. I love what you're doing over here.
I appreciate it, man. And you heard it from Bryson. We're going to the moon, baby.
Straight to the moon.
That's right. Yeah, listen, man. And that's kind of why we started the show. We said, hey, we want to get more and more people into the space. We have some knowledge. We want to bring in great guests. Obviously, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day, hopping on with us. Once again, make sure you guys subscribe to the show.
Subscribe.
The Goat Bowl. What is the Goat Bowl, Bryson? We're going to tell them once again, what is the Goat Bowl? The Goat Bowl is we took our own money. We bought NFTs.
Boom.
We put them into the Goat Bowl. Once we hit 5,000 subscribers, we open up the vault.
Oh, my God. It's so big.
54K, man. We got a cool cat in our vault.
Dude, that vault is sexy.
People are sleeping on it right now. We got a World of Women. We got a cool cat. We got no Axies. We got to throw some Axies into the vault.
Oh, my God. That vault is absolutely insane in the membrane.
There you go, brother. And yeah, and then we're going to open it up. We're going to give it away. That's like our way of saying this is us giving back to the community. I enjoyed this interview. I hope to have you back on the show. And we're going to keep tracks of you, man, taking over the world one Axie at a time. Guys, thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you again next week.
See you guys later.